All right, welcome to our Prop 19 overview. We've got real estate agent extraordinaire Janice Fernando from HomeSmart Realty West. She's helping families make the right move. And I am
hello.
And I'm Jesse Lipscomb. I'm an enrolled agent and investment advisor. I specialize in tax planning for real estate agents and real estate investors. Okay, real quick, Prop 19, it was big news in 2020 and 2021 as it applies to California homeowners and people who inherit properties. So let's talk about the changes real quick. The best website I've seen on this is actually from the Board of Equalization, boe.ca.gov/prop19. These comparison charts, I've literally screenshotted them and put them in this workshop. Okay. What they do is they show the differences between Prop 19 and the old law. For homeowners, if you're 55 years old in California, you used to be under Prop 60 and 90, which was essentially a downsizing opportunity. If you went same price to same price or less, you didn't get reassessed. Now with Prop 19, instead of being able to do it once, you can do it 3 times, and you actually can go up in value. Plus, you can go anywhere in California. For whatever reason, Prop 6090, certain counties didn't participate in it. So now it's statewide and lets you go up in value, down in value, as well as 3 times. That's pretty nice if you're 55 years of age or older.
Jesse, if I may emphasize, that's a really big game changer for retiring individuals, because right now it's a seller's market. So the odds are, even if downsizing, the price is probably going to be higher, especially if they're looking at a certain area of our great city.
Yeah, you're right. Downsizing is not the same thing as going down in price.
Mm-hmm.
If you raised your family in a 5-bedroom home with 2 stories, and it's just you and your spouse, and a 3-bedroom, 2-bath would be just fine. That 3-bedroom, 2-bath may be $200,000 more than the sales price of your 5-bedroom home. Just depends on what zip code you're in, really.
Right, exactly.
So, and I want to point out that Prop 19, everything's got a balance, right? So there's going to be good changes and bad changes. Well, Prop 19 is twice as good for 55-year-old homeowners than it is bad for adult kids that are going to inherit mom and dad's properties.
Yes, I agree.
A good tie-in to the next page, which is the parent-child, grandparent-grandchild exclusion. This part of Prop 19 replaces the old Prop 58 and Prop 193. The bottom line is, in the old days, if it was your primary residence, you could pass it on to your kids regardless of value. And if you had a rental property that was assessed at under $1 million, you could also pass that to your kid without being reassessed. The new rules of Prop 19 are pretty hard to comply with. It has to be the owner's primary and the adult child's primary residence. So that means if you're an adult and you're living at home with mom and dad, and the current value of the property is less than $1 million, at that point it won't be reassessed. But if you inherit a rental property, it will be reassessed from a property tax standpoint. We're going to talk a little bit later about, when it comes to inheritances, you have 2 tax types that are kind of at odds. You have capital gains taxes, which you get, if your parents bought that house for $500 or say $100,000 way back when, and it's currently worth $1 million, they pass away, you inherited it at $1 million, meaning you don't pay all those deferred capital gains taxes. And if you sold it for $1 million, you wouldn't owe any money in taxes. as opposed to property taxes, which is an annual tax that you pay on the value of the property. Okay, so as we kind of dive into this more and more, some things to keep in mind, the terms, and that's our next slide. So we want to know what the assessed value is, and we also want to know the market value, because they're not the same thing. The market value is what you buy or sell a house for. That's what it's worth right now. The assessed value under Prop 13 is what you buy it for, plus no more than 2% every year. Okay, you're going to find people from the 1970s that bought their homes remarkably under market, or not under market, but just a low price, where they're paying pennies on the dollar based on current assessed values. Now, as it comes to both the market value as well as the assessed value, if something happens, then it can also be reassessed. So market value event-based is what? Now it's the owner of the property dying. When they die, that's an event. The property can be reassessed. As a homeowner, the only time while you're alive that an event will happen that will be reassessed is if you make a dramatic change to the property, like you add square footage or a pool, or you do something where you're pulling permits, that event should, potentially get it reassessed. But the key here for Prop 19 purposes is just knowing that what you bought it for, what it's being assessed at, and what it's worth, the market value, are not going to be the same thing. So I'm going to give you some tools. The San Diego County Tax Collector has a great website, sdttc.com, and Realtor.com is also very helpful in enabling us to evaluate a given property from a tax perspective. So here's nobody on the call here today thought they were going to get a quiz, but here's a quiz. Let's figure out the tax rate, purchase price, assessed value, and market value of a given property. Okay, and so we look it up. First thing we're going to do is to go to the county website, and you just put in the address and the zip code, you hit search, and what you'll find is that in California there's a 1% statewide property tax rate, and in our county we've got a bunch of littles. At the end of the day, the tax rate's 1.22, and with a couple of extra fees, we're at $972 a year as the taxed, assess. Now, when you look at this property is only being assessed taxes based upon an assessment of $76,000. Okay, and Janice already knows the answer, because when we go to the Realtor.com, we find out that it was bought for $32,000 back in 1972. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice now? That's
Right?
like nowhere on the horizon.
I tell you what, I'll take the $76,000.
Right.
The property taxes are you're paying taxes on a value that's well under the estimated market price of $825,000. So what I like about using two resources like this is that they reinforce each other, right? So this is what the county's saying, and Realtor.com is pulling from public records, which is ultimately from the county. But when you see that they match, you feel confident that you've got good information. So, why is all this important? Well, we need a baseline of understanding. Okay, what'd you buy it for? What is it being assessed, and what can you sell it for us to understand how Prop 19 will either positively and or negatively impact your selling decision. So let's take a look at this same sample property under Prop 13. We already know the answers. We know that they bought it for $32,500. We know it's being assessed at $76,000, and we know the market's at $825,000. Before Prop 19, the folks that live here could have downsized their property, again, not in price, right? They could have gone from a 5-bedroom to a 3-bedroom. but from a single family residence to a condo. But regardless, if that property is $500,000 more cost, more value, more expensive, they'll go from paying $942 a year to $16,000 a year in taxes. And so right then and there, they like, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, sticker shock.
Nice thing about Prop 19 is Prop 19 says, listen, if you're going to go up in value, no big deal. You're just going to pay taxes based on the difference. So what's the difference? Well, it's the $1.3 million sales price versus the $825 sales price. That's $500,000. But your assessed value carries over. So it's the same taxes you're already paying, 76,000 plus 500. Now you might look at this, you might say, oh my God, it's still 7,000 a year. Yep, sure is. You're buying a $1.3 million house, but you're not paying $16,000 for it. I mean, that's every year Prop 19 is saving you $9,200 every year.
That's an amazing savings.
It's powerful. Okay? In fact, after we analyze the inherited part, I'm going to show you some planning opportunities where we can actually build Prop 19 into the section 121 of the IRS, the 2 to 5 year exclusion. I'll show you that in a minute. It really can help you save both on property taxes and capital gains. So here, where it comes to inherited properties, remember there's 2 types. You've got you're inheriting mom and dad's primary residence. And if you live in that primary residence or in, state that you intend to live in as your primary residence, it may not be reassessed, although it may. Let's take a look at why or how. So the same person, 32.5, they bought it for 76 current assessment. If the market value on that house is that 825 we've been talking about, what happens? Nothing. You live in it. It's mom and dad's house. You live there too. It's not being reassessed. Everything's good. Okay. But if the property is, say, more than $1 million, let's say $1.1 million more than the current assessed value, then you're going to pay reassessed taxes over that million. So in other words, if the property is 1.1 million, you get the $76,000 base plus $1 million, but anything over that, or in this case, $100,000, that would be reassessed. Okay, that honestly, it's not that bad if it's mom and dad's primary and it's your primary, no big deal. Where it's going to hurt is if it's mom and dad's investment property, because we're way past February 15th of 2021. We're in the summer. That means if it's a rental properties, get reassessed. That's the bottom line. So in this situation, this property will go from being assessed at $942 a year to $13,000 a year. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, $14,400 a year, which is a $13,000 increase. Okay. Our next,
and that's because it went over the 1 million limit.
Well, before February 16th, that's the answer, but it's just because it's an investment property. If it's an investment property, it just gets reassessed now. There's no.
Oh, it doesn't matter if it's over $1 million.
It doesn't matter. It just gets reassessed.
Okay.
If it's a primary residence and the difference between the market value and the assessed value, if that difference is under $1 million, so like in our example, that's that's less than $1 million, then it won't be assessed. Okay. But if it's $100,000 over $1 million, right? So if it's $1.1 million more, primary residence, dad's, your primary residence, you'd only be reassessed on the $100,000 over the $1 million. So how frequent of a situation is this going to be? Honestly, I don't think it's going to be frequent at all. I think the most frequent thing that's going to happen is that it's going to be treated as an investment property. It might well and true may be mom and dad's primary residence. But if it's not your primary residence, it's going to get reassessed, right? And so we'll go back to the early slides here, and we'll see that you need to file that homeowner exemption within 1 year of the transfer. Okay, if you don't do that, it's not going to be. I mean, you're stating under penalty of perjury that yes, this is my primary residence. And you've got to do that, and I think this is going to be another situation where people just forget. They'll go in and they'll transfer ownership, whatever, and they won't file the homeowner's exemption. And then, a year later, they'll get a love letter saying, "Oh, by the way, you didn't do this. Now it's being reassessed." So that's
what is the 55 plus one filing period?
Oh, you've got 2 years.
Okay.
2 years of the sale, and that's a perfect tie-in to what we were talking about earlier of some tax planning opportunities. Okay, so if you're 55 years of age, and we look at today's San Diego real estate market, it's crazy. It's the highest high. Never been this high.
Nice.
So if you're starting to get antsy and you want to sell your house right now, remember we were talking about purchase price, assessed value, and market value? What you got to do is you got to look at market value versus purchase price. Okay? That's it. If you're a homeowner and we're doing a little planning here, what can you sell your house for and what do you buy it? If that's $500,000 or less, and you've never rented the property, you could sell right now, lock in $500,000 completely tax-free, get an RV, travel the country, do whatever, and still have 2 years to transfer your property tax basis. Now, it's kind of a neat strategy. I mean, there are a lot of people that like to do that. What's the risk there? Well, the risk is 2 years later, you come back to California and prices are even more high than they are right now, right? I mean, but I just don't think it's conceivable that they're going to continue to rise as rapidly as they're rising. But who knows? I think the interest rate environment in America is so low right now that there's a big onus on buying real estate, right?
Right.
But this is a big deal. If you've got equity in your house, and I've had clients do this, they sell, they lock in that $500,000 tax-free money, and they say, well, we're going to rent or we're going to buy somewhere else, we're going to travel, we're going to do whatever we want. Okay. The next section here on inheritance planning, I didn't say that these are good options. I'm just saying that they're options. Okay. This is kind of a good option. If you inherit mom and dad's, $1.5 million rental property, your primary residence, and you're not going to live there as your primary. Let's do an easy example. Mom and dad pass. Doesn't matter if it's their primary or it's their rental. You're going to inherit that at $1 million. Okay, they might have bought it for 100. You're going to own it at $1 million. If you immediately sell that property, you'll pay zero capital gains taxes. That's what a step up in basis is. It steps up from 100,000 to the current market. If you sell it, you won't have a gain. Easy.
You won't have a gain. You won't have property tax.
You won't have anything. Yeah, you sell the property.
Yeah.
But let's say you just love that property and you want to rent it. Well, in our example a moment ago, we saw that having an investment property increase, just on $1.1 million, it's going to increase the property taxes $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month. actually a little bit more than that. So, hey, you know what? If you can rent the property for $1,000 a month more, what does it matter? Maybe Airbnb in that property will give you the additional cash flow to make up for the higher taxes. But it's complicated, right? Because it's you know, a lot of families, mom and dad make the sacrifice to they acquire the properties, and sometimes their kids don't show a lot of interest in it. And I mean, there's nothing worse than inheriting an asset that you don't know how to manage, right? In which case, that's where you're just better off selling it and not getting yourself into trouble. But I think that's part of the analysis when you inherit a property. Okay, well, I'd like to rent it out. I know there's going to be higher property taxes. Can I raise the rents to cover the additional property tax? And I think that's going to be a big decision factor for a lot of people, right? So, you know, a quick recap for a Prop 19 overview. We're talking about how it really helps homeowners, how from an inheritance, you know, parent-child, grandparent-grandchild transfer side of it, if you're under that radar of $1 million additional gain over the assessed value on a primary residence, it's got to be theirs, it's got to be yours. That's okay. But if it's a inherited property, you got to go back to the tax planning part of it, because it's probably going to be more advantageous to sell it. Right?
Especially in this market.
Oh, yeah, especially in this market. Especially. Real estate questions? Hey, call Janice, 858-837-2581 or JaniceFernandoHomes.com. Roadmaptax.com if you have any tax questions. And hey, thank you guys. Janice, thanks for putting this together.
Thank you, Jesse, for all that great information.
Thank you so much. All right, y'all take care and have a great one.